Hi, my name is Michael Lopez. I'm a cybersecurity professional and graduate student in the Cyber Operations and Resilience program at Boise State University. Today I am breaking down my ShadowNet project, a hands on multi VLAN hacking lab built around my Shadow Initiation Sequence Protocol, or SISP framework. SISP is my own martial arts inspired ethical hacking framework. It basically takes the belt level mindset and applies it to penetration testing or ethical hacking. Every belt builds on the one before it: recon, movement, exploitation, stealth, all in a clean progression instead of the usual figure it out on your own chaos. For comparison, the MITRE attack framework shows you what attackers do, but my CISP framework teaches you how to actually do it. My plan is simple. Students build the whole ShadowNet lab from scratch, deal with the same networking problems I had, fix PF problems, fight with Ubuntu firewalls, and more. That's where the real learning happens. The whole goal is to give people a real path into the penetration testing field with hands on skills, not another overpriced cert like OSCP, which students have to pay a lot of money to prep for and to take the test itself. Or self study doing five or more different online labs like Try Hack Me and Hack the Box. Then still have to pay for the OSCP and both of those subscriptions. Okay, let's go to the next slide. All right, here's what I'm covering today. I'll start with the lab setup, then the scope, white, and black lists that our fictitious client Sunnycorp provided me, how I document and hash everything for evidence. Then I'll walk through the full CIS belt progression up to the blue belt phase: recon, initial access, VLAN, lateral movement, and data exfiltration. After that, I'll show the final report structure and wrap up with where the project goes from here. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Here's our lab setup slash networking. So here's how the lab is actually built. ShadowNet runs on pfSense with two fully isolated VLANs, VLAN 10 for Eternal Network and VLAN 20 for the protected segment. When I built it, I made sure the networks were completely isolated. This is what the students will do in the web-based firewall. So here's the hypervisor, VirtualBox Manager. In here we have our victims and our Kali box and our firewall. If we open the pfSense firewall, we go to settings, network, we can see that our different adapters. So adapter 1 is not attached because we're not going to be using a WAN. We don't want access to the world wide web or anything outside our LAN. Then we have adapter 2, which is going to be the pfSense host. And then we have adapter 3, which is VLAN 10. And we have adapter 4, which is VLAN 20. Now this sets up the different segments for a network. The students will have to configure all this and set this up as well. LAN communication configuration is done in the pfSense firewall using the web-based firewall. For presentation time purposes, I will just explain to you how we set this up, but the students will have to do this on their own. LAN communication configuration is done in the pfSense firewall using the web-based firewall. So students will log in their web browser into their own firewall and learn how to configure VLAN 10 and VLAN 20. So these are some rules, and for time purposes, we're not going to go over how I did this, but the students will have to do this in detail. And this is cool because it makes it more configurable. I can make it harder, I can make it easier, depending on how I want to run the lab. So in this case, we have some rules that VLN 10, only certain devices can communicate to VLN 20. And this is what we're going to exploit. Obviously, my Kali Linux box on VLN 10 initially won't be able to scan or communicate with VLN 20. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so let's start with the fictional scope, white and blacklist document. Sunny Corp, our fictitious company, provided me with boundaries that control the entire project. The whitelist is simple. I'm only allowed to work inside the VLN 10 and VLAN 20. Everything outside that is blacklisted. No scanning past those networks, no touching PFSense directly, the firewall directly. Real companies give you strict scope and you must stay inside it. ShadowNet was built in the same way. Every step I took stayed inside these lines. So here's our penetration testing authorization agreement. It's going to have general information like the company name, company contact that I'm contacting, the penetration tester, start and stop dates. It's also going to have the whitelisted targets, which in this case, we have access to both IP ranges, VLAN 10 and VLAN 20. Our blacklisted out of scope targets, which is anything they put in here, allowed activities, prohibited activities, usernames for testing. They didn't provide us any usernames, obviously, but if they do, they put it there. Authorization and client approval. So usually the director will sign it, date it, and then you will sign it and date it. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so this is where it gets fun. So in our white belt phase is where everything kicks off. I started simple. So I will grab a few realistic employee names from a quick LinkedIn OSINT suite. Okay, here's a fictitious LinkedIn profile of Suncorp. Now, this is an actual company on LinkedIn. I'm not worried about posting their information because this is all open source intelligence. So, let's say hypothetically, I came into this was our fictitious company. I would come down here and I would look at people in the company, and here they have their people posted and they have job names, technical officer at Sunny Corp. So let's just say I did this first little OSINT sweep recon and I found three people, Jeff, Angel, and Mike. And Jeff in this case is an admin, a very bad admin. Okay, now I'm going to make a username.txt file with those names that I found in my recon for the OSINT on the LinkedIn page for the company. And I'm going to do it on my desktop to make things easier. So I'm going to right click on my desktop, open terminal here. So everything's going to be done on my desktop. That way it's faster. And so I'm going to echo -E, and I'm going to already just print this out because I have done it before. Okay, so what that did is that printed out a usernames text. Okay, so now we're going to run a basic net discover command. So we are on VLAN 10 because the company allowed us to get onto that network to do the pen testing, okay, in this scenario. And so since we're on VLAN 10, I'm going to run a net discover that's going to try to scan all the devices and IP addresses on the network. And let's see what happens. Let's see what I get. Now remember, the students will configure this to where I should not see VLN 20, or I should not, I should only be able to see VLN 10. And so right here we have the firewall, which is 192.168.10.1. Usually your firewall is the smallest IP address, and 192.168.10.102, and the MAC address here is obviously another device on this network that's not mine. So now I have the IP address of another device on VLN 10, obviously, because this is our 10 right here. This is our subnet. And so what I want to do is I want to take a picture of this for evidence. So if I press print screen, it takes a screenshot of this and puts it in my pictures folder here. See, and here's my picture of that. Now, what I'm doing is I'm collecting evidence so I can do stuff with it later on. Now that I have the IP address of that device, I can run an Nmap scan to see if there's any open ports or any vulnerabilities on that device, server, or whatever it is. So we're going to type in Nmap -sv so we can get versions, and we have that IP already in there. So let's see what we get. So now it's running a scan. It's going to give me any open ports. And all right, so always read your prompts and always read your stuff. So we go to Nmap scan report for the IP address we scanned and we discovered. And it says right here that TCP is open. Port 21 TCP FTP, so file transfer protocol is open. Also, port 22 SSH is open. Okay, so looking at our vulnerabilities, I'm going to take advantage of this open SSH. Okay, so with the SV up here, it gave me the versions of what our victim is running. So we're going to look up this version. Okay, so I'm going to copy and paste some stuff like that, and I already have OpenSSH Ubuntu pulled up, and then I found a vulnerability. Now, this is the common vulnerabilities and exploits database online. It's free, anybody can look it up, and this is where you pop in your vulnerabilities to see if you can take advantage of anything. Okay, so now that we have done our basic recon techniques, so we did a little OSINT, we did net discover, and we ran Nmap scan. So which gave us our IP address of our first victim on VLAN 10. We found some vulnerabilities. We looked up some vulnerabilities in this CVE database online, and we created a hashing evidence tool, which was written in Bash. And I'm assuming that our students have to have a prereq of some kind of initial programming, whether it's Bash, JavaScript, Python, C programming, C sharp, whatever it may be, but definitely Bash. They would have to know entry Bash because the students are going to create their own Bash script. I don't care how they create it, but they're going to make sure it works. And so this is the one we created. Now what this does is it's going to hash. It's going to take my pictures from my picture directory, all the evidence, and it's going to export it into my evidence directory. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and close that, and I'm going to run that. So I have everything on my desktop. So I'm going to open it on my desktop, and I'm going to run, I'm going to execute that, this bash script that I made to collect the evidence. Now, also that's part of this that's really cool is that you have to get this working, but you're also learning how to run files and how to make them executable and stuff like that. So it's more than just figuring out how to write the script. You have to get it to run. Okay, and I think this is what I called it. So all right, I'm going to run that, enter in my code, and there you go. So at the end, I have it say evidence collected complete, saved file to my evidence folder, and created a evidence log text. Now we'll close that, and we'll open this file, and there you go. See, here's my screenshots that I took of the vulnerabilities. We'll open these up, and we can see that I have an IP address there after I ran a scan. I also took another one of the open ports and vulnerabilities that I have, and here's my evidence log. Now, if you look on here, I have the date, the time, and where it is, and then I also have a SHA-256 hash of it. Now, this is important because that way we know that when I transfer this, I can give them the hashes that it has not been tampered with, and then it shows clear evidence that I found something legit. Okay, now let's go to the next slide, the next phase. So this is the green belt phase, and this is where the actual access happens. Using the users name list I built from the LinkedIn Recon, Angel, Jeff, and Mike, I will run a targeted Hydra brute force attack against the Ubuntu SSH service. Okay, so I'm going to open up a command line and type in Hydra, and I'm going to use my username stat .text file I created earlier, and then I'm going to use fast track word list to brute force SSH 192.168.10.102. This is the Ubuntu on VLAN 10 server that we compromised. Now I'm going to run that, and what's funny is you'll see Hydra gives you 10 seconds to abort. It says don't use this on military or Secret Service organizations or illegal purposes, and it gives you 10 seconds to abort. So this is going to start trying to brute force that SSH. All right, so as you can see, our Hydra brute force hit, and it found that login Jeff, his password is Qwerty, Qwerty, which is a lot of admins, I've seen them use this, but it's usually air gapped. Okay, so now let's go ahead and SSH into Jeff's account using the SSH that we found, password SSH, and we'll type in Jeff at 192.168.10.102. And his password is Qwerty. Okay. All right, looks like I'm in. So now let's go ahead and see where we're at. So who am I? Says he's Jeff. And then we're going to say ID. And here's my ID, user groups. Let's say the host name. And Mike VirtualBox. Well, that's just because that's what I set up. I want to see where I'm at. I'm in Jeff's home. And then I want to see if what he has in his home. And these are all his documents and whatnots in his home. Now I want to take a picture of this. I'm going to take another screenshot, shows all this stuff. And then at the end, I'm going to hash everything. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Now we're in the blue belt phase. This is where the project gets interesting. Sunnycorp provided the VLAN 20 subnet range up front, so I knew a second network existed, even though VLAN 10 couldn't talk to it initially from my Kali box. Once I had access as Jeff on the Ubuntu VLAN 10 box, I will do some basic enumeration in his home directory and find exactly what you would expect during a sloppy handoff. A file with the VLAN 20 server's IP address and the credentials needed to access it. This is a very realistic lateral movement. Attackers don't always pivot through tunnels. Sometimes the keys are just sitting there. With this information, I will do a direct SSH hop from VLAN 10 into VLAN 20. Okay, so now that we know where we're at, we PWD'd ourselves, we're at Jeff's home, we're going to look around his files and stuff, right? So I did an ls-a to see all his files listed, and something looks, there's a lot of stuff in here that's in here already for later, but I've noticed this next hop.txt. Now, in reality, it's probably going to be something else, but in this case, it's going to be this. So now I'm going to cat this. I'm going to open it and look at it. So I copied that, paste clipboard, and I'm going to open it. Okay, voila. So I have found some SSH credentials, access to IP address. Now I found the VLAN 20 IP address. So for program maintenance, don't let anyone see this, right? Now this is the easy version. We're going to make this exponentially harder, but this is an easy version just to get you around so you can get a taste of how to cat files open, how to find files, and stuff like that. So now that we have that, we're going to use that to SSH into VLAN 10. But before we do that, we're going to ping it and to see if we can speak with this, right? and I'm gonna give it what's that? 4 pings. Okay, and so we can actually ping this. Now, if I go back to my Kali box, now this is very important. So if I go back to my Kali box, oh, Kali box, I'm in my Kali box. I forgot. So if I go to my Kali box and I open up a terminal and I try to ping that from here, right? It's unreachable. I can't reach that network. So, and that was 20.101. Okay, so I can't reach it, right? So this is working. So the students have to set this up to where my box cannot see that VLAN 20, but obviously VLAN 10 can, and that's the reason why we're hacking into that first. All right, so let's go ahead and SSH into that IP that we have there from Jeff's, right? So SSH Jeff at 192.168.20.102. Is that the one? No. 101. All right, and we know his password already. All right, now let's see if that worked. Now let's check where we're at. So I'm going to put who am I? And I'm Jeff. I'm going to say host name, VirtualBox mic. And then I'm going to put IPA. And it is showing that I am at the .20.101 IP. Let's just do IP route. There you go. So default via 192.168. Now the students have to set all this up. So this looks like it's just okay. It's how how cool this is basic, but it's really not when you have to set all this up, because you have to set up permissions, you have to set up default gateways and all that for your VLNs through Ubuntu. You have to mess with the Ubuntu firewall and stuff like that. So it's kind of difficult, but it's really fun to get it all working. So this is just weeks and weeks of work trying to get all this running. Okay, so now that I'm in, obviously, so now I'm going to see if I can find any files or anything. Now I'm looking for the crown jewel, right? And then that'll wrap this all up. Okay, so now that we have access to the VLAN 20 Ubuntu server, we're going to snoop around just like we did before, and I'm going to use ls-a to see what files we can discover. And what do you know? Here is the crown jewel.txt. Now I'm going to go ahead and open that and see what's in it. Okay, it says top secret shadow project crown jewel data. This file represents sensitive corporation intellectual property. Okay, so we have the crown jewel, but now we need to get it from here back to our Kali box so we can steal the information, right? I'm going to go ahead and take another picture of this and for evidence. Okay, so now that we know the directory of where the crown jewel is, we know it's in its home directory, and we know the VLN IP addresses. Let's go ahead and use SCP to exfiltrate that information back to our Kali box from our Kali box. So SCP stands for Secure Copy Protocol. Okay, and you can use this with SSH. So I'm going to go SCP, and I've already got all the information here. So I'm going to right click now. What it does is it's going to hop. It's gonna use SCP to, and then the -J is the jump. It's gonna go log into Jeff the first VLN, since the first VLN Ubuntu machine has access to the second one. Then we're gonna go into the directory where the crown jewels was. It was basically in Jeff's home, and it was called crownjewel.txt. And then we're gonna bring it back to our home Kali desktop. Okay. So let's go ahead and do that. Now it's asking for Jeff's password. We know it for the first one, for the first Ubuntu machine in VLN 10. Now it's hopping to the next one and it's asking for his password again, right? It's going to be the same password. And voila, we've exfiltrated that data. Now, if we open this over here with mousepad, this is the original data now that we saw when we opened it in the actual Ubuntu server on VLN 20. But this is going to be actual data or something. But this is what we have, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take another picture of that, right? Put that in my evidence. Okay, let's go ahead and do the next slide. All right, so the last piece of this project is the final report. This is the deliverable to Sunnycorp. This is what they would actually receive. It starts with a clean executive summary that explains what happened, what I found, and why it matters without diving into technical noise. Then it breaks down each major finding from every belt stage. All the evidence is included in an appendix, every snapshot, every hash, every command, so that the report is defensible and audit ready. I also map the attack steps to the MITRE attack frame and align the risk section with NIST guidance to keep it professional. This closes out the engagement. Okay, here is an example or a mock-up of the ShadowNet penetration final testing report. And it's going to have the executive summary, scope and methodology, what I did and how I did it, findings and evidence. Now this is where the hashes come in and the pictures and everything. Risk analysis and rating, remediation plan, conclusion and recommendations, and here's my pendencies. Okay, let's do the next slide. For the next phase of ShadowNet, phase 2, we will be completing the belt phases, red belt and black belt, which includes generating SSH keys, installing backdoors, cleaning logs, and clearing bash history. I will also make the environment a lot tougher. First thing I'm doing is removing Jeff's pseudo rights. That means any real progression will require privilege escalation techniques, kernel exploits, misconfigurations, etc., instead of just running commands as root. Now, the students will all set this up and figure out how to do this. Well, I will do it beforehand, and then they will have to do it themselves. I'm also planning to make the crown jewel server's IP much harder to find so the lateral movement path isn't handed to us. That forces actual recon discipline. Overall, phase 2 is going to focus on stealth, evasion, and more advanced SISP techniques. Still following the belt progression methodology. The long-term plan is to build this into a full sequence of harder labs, and that's where ShadowNet is going next. Okay, let's go to the next slide. All right, I would like to say thank you for sitting through my presentation, and if you have any questions about ShadowNet, the belt progression, or techniques I used, feel free to reach out. I am happy to walk through any part of the project in more detail. Matter of fact, I would love to. You can contact me at capitalgame@proton.me.